everybody, and welcome back to Tangent TV. My name is Joseph Lanzalata. I'm the Student Entrepreneurship Program Manager for Tangent, Trinity's Ideas Workspace, and today is the final day of Imagination Week, as you see up at the top of the screen. So I am super excited about how this week has gone thus far. We've had a lot of great sessions, a lot of great tools, a lot of great things we've gone through. Today we are going to take it a little bit slower, a little bit more straightforward, but I'll get to that in just a second. As always, I want to start by mentioning that if you haven't already, if you are a student of Trinity College Dublin, you can go to our website, tcd.ie/tangent, and join Tangent Online, which is just there. If you go and click that little arrow, you will be able to join Tangent Online, which is an open Blackboard module for all students of Trinity. It has resources for innovators and entrepreneurs, a lot of the things we would have gone through this week, and many more that will come soon. If you are not, please jump over to the further to the right and join our Tangent mailing list. Over there, you get a monthly update that'll just tell you what's going on in the innovation community, what's going on in Tangent, and keep you filled with everything you need to hear about innovation and entrepreneurship. Now, with that out of the way, I get to dive into day 4, the final day of our Imagination Week. Thus far, as I said before, we have gone through a number of tools, a number of trends, and looked at kind of what is out there to help us start getting inspired and start developing ideas. Now, today, I want to do a bit of a transition, looking a bit forward at coming out of looking at what is out there, what is going to create that new good idea. And it will very much bring us into next week, which is going to be Collaboration Week. So when you think of new ideas and you think of ideas that are coming out of somewhere, you may think, like myself, about TED Talks. There are some wonderful TED Talks out there, TED. If you have not seen them, you can go and check them out. If you are here now, I'm going to put the link to the one we're going to look at today into the description as soon as I jump over to it. And if you are watching this in recorded version, you can look down in the description. I'll have the link there, and you can explore beyond this. But today we are going to be looking at one in particular. It is by Stephen Johnson. That's him just there. And Stephen Johnson is going to talk to us about where good ideas come from. Often people are interested in innovation, interested in entrepreneurship, but how do I come up with that next great idea? This talk is going to bring us through that, and I think it works as a really good transition into collaboration, which is going to be next week, which will look at how we work together, what are the types of collaboration, tools for collaboration, and then some leadership in collaboration environments. But for today, we are going to look at Stephen's talk. If you have already seen it, it is well worth watching again. I have watched it a few times, and I've gotten something out of it every single time. For anybody who's here, if you have comments, if you have questions, if you have anything, I will still be here while the video is playing, but for your viewing pleasure, I'm going to take myself out of the video. I will still be active in the comments though, so do say hello, and I'm interested to hear your feedback. So I'm going to make this full screen here so you can see it, and for the sake of this video, I'm going to take the little Imagination Week banner off the top. I hope you all are ready and are ready to enjoy what I think is one of the top TED Talks of all time. I know that's a big statement, but for me, anything that's about creating new ideas just gets me excited. So we will dive right in, and I hope everyone enjoys.
Just a few minutes ago, I took this picture about 10 blocks from here. This is the Grand Cafe here in Oxford. I took this picture because this turns out to be the first coffee house to open in England in 1650. That's its great claim to fame. And I wanted to show it to you not because I want to give you the kind of, Starbucks tour of historic England, but rather because the English coffee house was crucial to the development and spread of one of the great intellectual flowerings of the last 500 years, what we now call the Enlightenment. And the coffee house played such a big role in the birth of the Enlightenment, in part because of what people were drinking there, right? Because before the spread of coffee and tea through British culture, what people drank, both elite and mass folks drank day in and day out from dawn until dusk, was alcohol, right? Alcohol was the daytime beverage of choice. You would drink a little beer with breakfast and have a little wine at lunch, a little gin, particularly around 1650, and top it off with a little beer and wine at the end of the day. That was the healthy choice, right? Because the water wasn't safe to drink. And so effectively, until the rise of the coffee house, you had an entire population that was effectively drunk all day. And you can imagine what that would be like, right, in your own life, and I know this is true of some of you, if you were drinking all day and then you switched from a depressant to a stimulant in your life, you would have better ideas. You would be sharper and more alert. And so it's not an accident that a great flowering of innovation happened as England switched to tea and coffee. But the other thing that makes the coffee house important is the architecture of the space. It was a space where people would get together from different backgrounds, different fields of expertise, and share. It was a space, as Matt Ridley talked about, where ideas could have sex, right? This was their conjugal bed, in a sense. Ideas would get together there. And an astonishing number of innovations from this period have a coffee house somewhere in their story. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about coffee houses for the last 5 years because I've been kind of on this quest to investigate this question of where good ideas come from. What are the environments that lead to unusual levels of innovation, unusual levels of creativity? What's the kind of environmental, what is the space of creativity? And what I've done is I've looked at both environments like the coffee house, I've looked at like media environments like the World Wide Web that have been extraordinarily innovative. I've gone back to the history of the first cities. I've even gone to biological environments like coral reefs and rainforests that involve unusual levels of biological innovation. And what I've been looking for is shared patterns, kind of signature behavior that shows up again and again in all of these environments. Are there recurring patterns that we can learn from, that we can take and kind of apply to our own lives or our own organizations, our own environments, to make them more creative and innovative? And I think I found a few. But what you have to do to make sense of this and to really understand these principles is you have to do away with a lot of the way in which our kind of conventional metaphors and language steers us towards certain concepts of idea creation, right? We have this very rich vocabulary to describe moments of inspiration, right? We have the kind of the flash of insight, the stroke of insight, we have epiphanies, we have eureka moments, we have the light bulb moments, right? All of these concepts, as kind of rhetorically florid as they are, share this basic assumption, which is that an idea is a single thing. It's something that happens often in a wonderful, illuminating moment. But in fact, what I would argue, and what you really need to kind of begin with, is this idea that an idea is a network on the most elemental level, right? I mean, this is what is happening inside your brain. An idea, a new idea, is a new network of neurons firing in sync with each other inside your brain. It's a new configuration that is never formed before, right? And the question is, how do you get your brain into environments where these new networks are going to be more likely to form? And it turns out that, in fact, the kind of network patterns of the outside world mimic a lot of the network patterns of the internal world of the human brain. So the metaphor I'd like to use is actually, I can take from a story of a great idea that's quite recent, a lot more recent than the 1650s. A wonderful guy named Timothy Prestero has an organization called Design That Matters. They decided to tackle this really pressing problem of the terrible problems we have with infant mortality rates in the developing world. One of the things that's very frustrating about this is that we know by getting modern neonatal incubators into any context, if we can keep premature babies warm, basically, it's very simple. We can have infant mortality rates in those environments. So the technology is there. We have these are standard in all the industrialized worlds. The problem is, if you buy a $40,000 incubator, and you send it off to a mid-sized village in Africa, it will work great for a year or 2 years, and then something will go wrong, and it will break, and it will remain broken forever. Because you don't have a whole system of spare parts, and you don't have the on-the-ground expertise to fix this $40,000 piece of equipment. And so you end up having this problem where you spend all this money getting aid and all this advanced electronics to these countries, and then it ends up being useless. So what Prestero and his team decided to do is to look around and see what are the kind of abundant resources in these developing world contexts. And what they noticed was they don't have a lot of DVRs, they don't have a lot of microwaves, but they seem to do a pretty good job of keeping their cars on the road, right? There's a Toyota 4Runner on the street in all these places. They seem to have the expertise to keep cars working. So they started to think, could we build a neonatal incubator that's built entirely out of automobile parts. And this is what they ended up coming with. It's called the Neo-Nurture device. From the outside, it looks like a normal little thing you'd find in a modern Western hospital. In the inside, it's all car parts. It's got a fan, it's got headlights for warmth, it's got door chimes for alarm, it runs off a car battery. And so all you need is the spare parts from your Toyota and the ability to fix a headlight, and you can repair this thing. Now, that's a great idea, but what I'd like to say is that, in fact, this is a great metaphor for the way that ideas happen. We like to think our breakthrough ideas, are like that $40,000 brand new incubator, state-of-the-art technology. But more often than not, they're cobbled together from whatever parts that happen to be around nearby. We take ideas from other people, from people we've learned from people we run into in the coffee shop, and we stitch them together into new forms, and we create something new. That's really where innovation happens. And that means that we have to change some of our models of kind of what innovation and deep thinking really looks like, right? I mean, this is one vision of it. Another is Newton and the apple. This is a statue, though Newton was in Cambridge, this is a statue from Oxford, where you're sitting there thinking a deep thought and the apple falls from the tree and you have a theory of gravity. In fact, the spaces that have historically led to innovation tend to look like this, right? This is Hogarth's famous painting of a kind of political dinner at a tavern, but this is what the coffee shops looked like back then. This is the kind of chaotic environment where ideas were likely to come together, where people are likely to have kind of new, interesting, unpredictable collisions, people from different backgrounds. So if we're trying to build organizations that are more innovative, we have to build spaces that, strangely enough, look a little bit more like this. This is what your office should look like. It's part of my message here. And one of the problems with this is that people are actually, when you research this field, people are notoriously unreliable when they actually kind of self-report on where they have their own good ideas or their history of their best ideas. And a few years ago, a wonderful researcher named Kevin Dunbar decided to go around and basically do the Big Brother approach to figuring out where good ideas come from. He went to a bunch of science labs around the world and videotaped everyone as they were doing every little bit of their job. So when they were sitting in front of the microscope, when they were talking to their colleagues at the water cooler and all these things. And he recorded all these conversations and tried to figure out where the most important ideas, where they happened. And when we think about the classic image of the scientist in the lab, we have this image, they're poring over the microscope and they see something, in the tissue sample and, oh, eureka, they've got the idea. What happened actually when Dunbar kind of looked at the tape is that, in fact, almost all the important breakthrough ideas did not happen alone in the lab in front of the microscope. They happened at the conference table at the weekly lab meeting when everybody got together and shared their kind of latest data and findings. Oftentimes, when people shared the mistakes they were having, the error, the noise, and the signal they were discovering. And something about that environment, and I've started calling it the kind of the liquid network, where you have lots of different ideas that are together, different backgrounds, different interests, jostling with each other, bouncing off each other. That environment is, in fact, the environment that leads to innovation. The other problem that people have is they like to condense their stories of innovation down to kind of shorter time frames. So they want to tell the story of the eureka moment. They want to say, there I was standing there and I had it all suddenly clear in my head. But in fact, if you go back and look at the historical record, it turns out that a lot of important ideas have very long incubation periods. I call this the slow hunch. We've heard a lot recently about, kind of hunch and instinct and kind of blink-like sudden moments of clarity. But in fact, a lot of great ideas linger on, sometimes for decades, in the back of people's minds. They have a feeling that there's an interesting problem, but they don't quite have the tools yet to discover them. They spend all this time, kind of working on certain problems, but there's another thing lingering there that they're interested in, but they can't quite solve. Darwin is a great example of this. Darwin himself, in his autobiography, tells the story of coming up with the idea for natural selection as a classic eureka moment. He's in his study, it's October of 1838, and he's reading Malthus, actually, on population, and all of a sudden, the basic algorithm of natural selection kind of pops into his head, and he says, at last, I had a theory with which to work. That's in his autobiography. About a decade or two ago, a wonderful scholar named Howard Gruber went back and looked at Darwin's notebooks from this period, and Darwin kept these copious notebooks where he wrote down every little idea he had, every little hunch. And what Gruber found was that Darwin had the full theory of natural selection for months and months and months before he had his alleged epiphany reading Malthus in October of 1838. There are passages where you can read it and you think like you're reading from a Darwin textbook from the period before he has this epiphany.
Hi everybody. So it looks like the video is now back up. We had the video interrupted because I think that when we play the TED video as an embedded video, we're not able to have it uploaded live on YouTube. So where we are now is I've sent the link. I put the link in the description. For anybody who's watching the recording of this video, I would recommend that you go back and find the link in the description. Watch this TED Talk because it is hugely valuable, and my only desire here is to bring value to you guys. So what I would recommend is you go and watch the video on the site on TED. It's a wonderful resource. There are loads of other videos there. But for today, because I am not able to play the rest of the video, I'm just going to do my wrap up here. Essentially, what you're getting out of this is that ideas come in places where there's a coming together of people. A lot of that is what came out of that. There's the coffee house analogy, for example. When people come together, new ideas can form. And in many ways, this is what Tangent aims to be in the hub of Trinity College Dublin. My job as the Student Entrepreneurship Program Manager is to help bring students together, but also connect them with the outside community. And this is a great platform for us to be able to do that digitally while we don't have the ability to be in our physical space. However, there is a lot more to come as we move back into our physical space, and I am excited to share that with you guys on how we will be collaborating coming next week. So Collaboration Week kicks off next week. For anybody watching this as a recording, jump on over there. It's probably already uploaded. For the rest of you guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your bank holiday weekend. I will hope to see you all back, and please do go click the link and go and watch this video if you have not already. Again, I apologize for that, but you will still be able to see the video. It's not off the internet completely, and I hope to see you all back here next week. That's all for now. Bye, guys.